All right, guys, welcome back to Everything Business. Right, in my last upload, I did a double entry question where I showed you guys how to do a double entry, a full set of transactions. All right, well, now I am going to show you how to balance off those double entry accounts because those double entry accounts don't just stay the way they are. I am going to show you how to balance off those double entry accounts, and if time permits, I'll show you how to also extract a trial balance from those balances that you would have made in the double entry accounts. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. All right, so here we go. Now, some key principles that we must remember when we are balancing off double entry accounts is that when we are balancing off double entry account, we must follow 5 steps, 5 key steps. So the first step is to add up both sides to find their totals, right? Add up both sides to find their totals. The second step that we have to do is to subtract the smaller amount from the larger side. So the smaller side from the larger side. And you will get a figure that we will call the balance carried down, right? The balance carried down. And a tip right there is that the balance carried down is always on the side that has the smallest amount. The third step is to enter the balance carried down on the side with the smallest amount. The fourth step is to now balance or to add up both sides in terms of you will make sure that both sides, the total on both sides are equal. And then the fifth step is to carry down the balance carried down, right, to the next side, and it will now be called the balance brought down, right, beneath the totals. So let's do it. Let's look at it. So here we have our capital account. We are going to balance it off for the end of this year, right? And so the balance carried down is always at the end of the financial period. So the first step is to add up both sides to get their total. When I add this side, I get 3,500. You can write that figure anywhere, right? So that you don't forget. When I add up the debit side add up to 0. So I'm going to subtract 0 from 3,500 is 3,500. So you're going to insert that figure, which is now called the balance carried down, for the end of the month, which is June 30th. Balance carried down, or it is called balance CD. The amount is going to be the same as 3,500, right? Because that is the difference between both sides. Now, a simple trick here, right? We may not have to go through all the 5 steps for this account. And the reason is because this account only has one transaction. And because this account only has one transaction, we can skip out the part about totaling the account because it's only one transaction. So we can simply just double line these two accounts, these two amounts, sorry, right? And you would realize that we skip out the fourth step, right? So now the account is total, right? But we are not finished yet. If you have a balance carried down, you must now have a balance brought down. The balance brought down is the same amount as the balance carried down. However, it is recorded on the opposite side from the balance carried down, right? On the opposite side beneath the totals, right? And it is for the beginning of the next month. So it is now July 1 balance brought down, or BD, and the amount is the same amount. So don't forget that important point. It is the same amount. So this account is now balanced off. All right. So please pay keen attention to that. The next account that we'll be looking at, right? So let's look at this account now. The cash account. The cash account, it might be a little bit different, and I'm glad that it's a little bit different so that you can see how we balance off an account like this. So we follow the same rule. Add up both sides to get their totals. So the debit side add up to 3,500, and we know that because it's only one item on the debit side. The credit side, however, is different. So we have to now add up it. 2,800, get a calculators out, plus 150 plus 120, right? That is equal to 3,070. So that's the total for both. That's the total on the credit side, and the total on the debit side is 3,500. That is the first step. The second step now is to subtract the smaller amount from the larger amount, right? So minus 3,500. So the difference between both sides, difference on both sides is what? $430. So we have done the second step. The third step is to enter the smallest amount, right? On the side, we enter the difference between both sides on the side that has the smallest amount for the end of the period. That is the balance carried down. So 430. The credit side has the least amount. So we go June 30. Balance carried down, and it is $430, right? Now, the fourth step is to total both sides. We're going to total both sides, right? So we're totaling both sides. So this side would now be equal to 3,500. You can add it up and check it if you want. This side now is equal to 3,500. You should always ensure that you go out of your way to ensure that the totals are in the same line. It is very important that your totals are in the same line. So you would have realized that I would have skipped some line, right? I would have skipped these lines, 1, 2, 3 on the debit side, just to ensure that my totals are in the same line. That is the fourth step. Now we are at the fifth step now, where we insert the balance brought down. So the balance brought down for the beginning of the next month, and the balance brought down, sorry, should be on the opposite side. So you see, you have to be careful, you know, right? Must be on the opposite side. So it is 430. So at the beginning of the new month, this is the balance that is on the account. So if you think about it as you having money in a bank, at the end of the year, right? Let's say you have $100 in your bank account at December 31st. Then that is your closing balance. On January 1st, you would still have what? $100. That is now your opening balance. So let's look at the bank account as we're talking about bank. So follow the same principle. On the debit side, it is 2,800, and it's easy to calculate that. On the credit side, it is 755, right? 755. So we go to our calculator, right? And we are going to calculate. So 2,800 minus 755 would give us $2,045. And which side are we going to put that information on? The balance or the difference between both sides must always go on the side that has the smallest amount, which is this side. Yeah? Yeah, when I say smallest amount, I'm not talking about the amount of entries. I'm talking about smallest amount in terms of figures. All right? And you record it for the end of the month. So June 30, balance carried down, and the amount is 2,045. 2,045. That's the second step. That's the third step. Sorry. Fourth step now. We are going to total both sides. Both sides are now going to equal to 2,800. So put in the figure there. 2,800. And you go out of your way to ensure that both figures are in line, right? So that's step 4. Step 5, which is the final step. Whatever side the balance CD is on, the balance brought down must be on the opposite side. So you go July 1. And bank account normally, not always, but normally has a debit balance. So the balance is 2,000. and 45. The balance brought down is going to be the same as the balance carried down. All right. All right. So the purchases account, same principle. Add up both sides to get their totals, right? And at this point, I am going to just speed up the video a bit so you can see, right? So I'm going to speed up the video a bit so you can see how I balance off the rest of accounts. All right, so let's go.
All right, so as you can see, the purchases account, the information is the balance carried down is on the credit side because it has the smallest amount, and the balance carried down will always be on the side that has the smallest amount. All right, the purchases account normally carry a debit balance as well. L Cook, who is a creditor, right? Creditor's account normally carries a credit balance, right? So the information that is in L Cook and Burton, all these guys, right? Their account will carry a credit balance, right? Which means that the balance brought down is going to be on the credit side. The balance brought down. So the balance carried down will be on the debit side, just like what you're seeing happening in T Hill and the C Small right now, right? So we are balancing these accounts off. It is pretty simple to balance off accounts that only has one item in it, right? So as you can see with Subaran, one item again, it is pretty simple, right? For the sales account, as you will see in a moment, the sales account, just like the purchases account, you balance it off in the same way. However, the information, a lot of the information is on the credit side, and therefore the balance carried down will be on the debit side, which means the balance brought down is going to be on the credit side. The sales account is always credited. That is why you have that. S. Walters, right? These guys are debtors, so it is the opposite for creditors. So for debtors, these accounts carries a debit balance, and so you will find that the balance brought down will be on the debit side in their account, which means that the balance carried down will be on the credit side in the debtors accounts, right? Rent is an expense account which also carries a debit balance, and so you will find that the balance brought down is on the debit side. Fixtures is a fixed asset account, and the same principle would apply to fixtures. Matalan or Mantalan Limited would be a creditor because we bought the fixtures from him on credit, so his account would carry a credit balance. Wages is an expense account, carries a debit balance, so the balance BD on the debit side. Purchases returns, right? Purchases returns is always credited, right? And so it carries a credit balance. The balance brought down will be on the credit side. And motor van, fixed asset account, similarly to fixtures. All right.
All right, so there you have it. All the accounts have now been balanced off, right? And the next step in the process would have been now to extract a trial balance from this information. And I will show you how to do that in the next video. There are some misconceptions about balancing of accounts that I want to talk about very quickly. The first myth or misconception is that the bank account is always have a debit balance. That is not true. The balance carried down, another myth is that the balance carried down is always on the credit side. That is not true. And the balance brought down is always on the debit side. That is not true, right? For any account, right? You have to remember the 5 steps. The 5 steps are add up both sides to get their total, right? Subtract the smallest amount from the largest amount. Insert the difference for the end of the month. Insert the difference at the end of the month on the side with the smallest amount, and you call that your balance carried down. Then you total both sides of the account, ensuring that the totals are in the same line and that they are equal, and you double line them. And then the 5th and final step is that you enter the balance brought down on the opposite side from the balance carried down beneath the totals for the beginning of the next month. So those are the 5 steps that you need to remember and follow. Join me in my next video where I'll show you how to extract a trial balance from all of this. All right? Take care. Walk good.